How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Good
Great.
to see. Good
Hare
to good to see. Hare Krishna Gross. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
All right. So we'll begin our Bhagavad Gita session. I was just listening to a class, a very wonderful scholar, devotee living in Vrindavan, and he was stressing the importance of approaching Bhagavad Gita by first doing Mangalacharna, doing preparation to prepare our minds for hearing the wisdom coming from Bhagavad Gita. So I think I'm going to start in that regard. And some of you may know these mantras. And if you don't, you can just listen and gain the benefit. And we'll begin with the uh, invocation prayers or mantras. Om Jnana Timarandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantika. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shasti Gaura Bhaktavinda. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Sri Mati Bhaktivedanta Swaminita Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasthita Deshatari. So we begin with the ninth chapter, ninth verse. That's where we left off. I just want to do something quickly here. And so my phone doesn't go out on me. Okay, go. Otherwise, every 2 minutes I'd be hitting the screen. So let's begin where we left off. And as we normally do, we will chant the Sanskrit of the uh, ninth verse of the ninth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which reads as follows: Na chamang tani karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya udasina vadashinam ashaktam teshu karmasu. And the translation of this verse is, in English, O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So Krishna is saying here that karma, the law of karma, binds us. Jagnartat karmano nyatra lokoyam karma bandhana. Karma bandhana means binding. Our actions bind us as long as we're acting under the law of karma. And we're acting under the law of karma if we're not under the guidance of a bona fide teacher, bona fide spiritual master, who is giving us directions on how to live our life and how to perform sadhana. When one does that, seriously commits to a sadhana and following the directions of a spiritual master, then it shifts. It's no longer we're working under the laws of karma. Now we work under the laws of transcendence directly overseen by Krishna himself. It doesn't mean there won't be reactions, but it means that Krishna will be in control of those reactions and can minimize the reactions. In other words, if we have a reaction to experience, by Krishna's grace, he can minimize the reaction. I remember once there was an incident where Satsarup Maharaj, they were in the Boston Temple, and the windows, there was an old building, and in old buildings, unless you replace the windows are quite problematic. So the one window that he was fooling with to get open, and you know how it is, you open the window and it should stay there. So he opened the window to let air in, and he thought it would stay there. And then what happened is it didn't hold, and it came crashing down and hit him on the head, and he had a big bump on his head. And he went and told Prabhupada. He said, "Yeah, I guess, Prabhupada, that's my karmic reaction." And Prabhupada said to him, "Yes, it is your karmic reaction, but you should know that your head should have been cut off, but Krishna minimized the reaction just to get a bump on the head." So it's not that we have that that ticket. What's that ticket in the monotony game, Monopoly game, where that go pass? It's not like we have that we can perform anything, any kind of activity, and not have any reaction to experience. But Krishna is directly guiding those reactions to teach us a lesson, to have us understand what is the lesson that we should learn from this particular incident. And Krishna is very kind in that way, especially if we understand that principle that Krishna is directing our lives. He's helping us in all situations. We may deviate from the path to a degree or whatever, but Krishna will make an arrangement that he'll get us back. He'll get us back on track, especially if there's sincerity there. There's two ingredients. Well, there's actually three ingredients to success in terms of practicing Krishna consciousness. One is sincerity. The other one is enthusiasm. And the third one is determination. We need to have that, sincerity, determination, and enthusiasm. And then that will help us. That will help us to overcome any obstacle that may be there, because we will, by our determination and recognition that Krishna is in charge, that we will continue on our path and understand that there's lessons to be learned, in terms of our life and the activities that are occurring in our life. But Krishna is saying here, this work cannot bind me. So Krishna is indicating that he is totally transcendental to any kind of bondage by virtue of work. There is no, in Krishna's realm, in relationship to Krishna, there is no action and reaction. The work that Krishna does, what Krishna does, is not binding to him. It is. It is, in the sense that he is the supreme, and everything that he does is purposeful. So another thing is, sometimes people think that the supreme does not have any work to do, and if we become realized, we will also be in that position. But no, Krishna says, I have work. I am ever detached from all material activities, and I'm seated as though neutral. So he is not performing any material activities, and that requires definition. Material activities as opposed to spiritual activities. So spiritual activities is in direct relationship to the Supreme, following the directives that come to us through God's pure devotee. He gives us directions how to live our life, in terms of our sadhana, in terms of all the practical aspects of our journey, our spiritual journey. Material activities means disconnected. We're not connected to the laws of transcendence, the laws of the Supreme, and we're doing things for our own gratification. When we do that, then we are for sure under the laws of karma. So whenever we do actions solely for our pleasure and not in connection with the pleasure of the Supreme, that means we're under the law, the stringent laws of karma, action and reaction. everything that we do in that regard, in that way, with that mindset, with that perspective, there will be a reaction to it. Now, it's not that karma ceases to exist when you become a devotee dedicated to serving the Supreme. It's that you have reaction. You do no longer under when you're under the auspices of the Supreme Lord and his devotee, you do work that no longer has reaction. It's called akarma. There's karma, good action, vikarma, bad action, and akarma, action that is done solely and wholly for the pleasure of the Supreme. So if we set up our life in that way, we are no longer accruing reactions. But Prabhupada used a very nice example in this regard, where he said, a fan, when you have a fan plugged in, the rotors are going very fast, etc. You pull the plug of the fan, the fan doesn't immediately stop. There's momentum. And so the fan keeps going and going and going, especially if you see in these ceiling fans, the momentum keeps going and then it slows down and then it slows down and finally it stops. So in regards to karma, the laws of karma, if you're not under the laws of karma and you're under the laws of transcendence, it doesn't mean that you do not experience reactions that come to you from previous actions. Could be past birth or many births. There are slow fructifying reactions and there are very quick fructifying reactions. So we may have a storehouse of reactions from previous births that are fructifying at a slow rate. That will continue to happen. But the rotors of the fan are slowing down, which means we're no longer accruing new reactions. So eventually we will experience reactions, karmic reactions, and also by the potency of chanting and the potency of sadhana, those will be minimized at worst, and at best, some of them will be totally removed. And the example that is used in the Nectar of Devotion, the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is like seeds. If you take seeds and you put them in an oven, then the heat of the oven will nullify the seed and the potency of the seed. So by virtue of chanting, that's why we place so much emphasis that the chief practice in bhakti yoga is chanting, either chanting of japa, our personal meditation, or the chanting in kirtan, or the recitation of Sanskrit shlokas, like in Bhagavad Gita. Those have a potency, a heating potency, and they can, if done regularly, consistently, and in all seriousness, they can actually nullify the potency of the seeds of reaction that are there. So, point being that we follow, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, tadvidhi pratipadena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninam tattvadarshanam. So tattvadarshanam means one who is the seer of the truth. When we are under the guidance of a seer of the truth, a tattvadarshini, then that tattvadarshini is giving us directions how to live our life so that we can make spiritual advancement. That tattvadarshini will also have a reciprocation. Any relationship, there has to be reciprocation. So exchange of energies, so to speak. So the teacher, the guru, is giving us knowledge, wisdom, either Vani through sound vibration or Vapu through personal association. When we observe the actions of the teacher, the spiritual master, the guru, then that is a part of our education. So Vani means hearing the instructions. Prabhupada said of the two, that Vani is more important because at any time, any place, under any circumstances, you can always remember the teachings of your guru, your spiritual master. You can always meditate on those. Whereas you don't always, I've became a devotee in 1972. And so Prabhupada was on the planet from 72 to 77. And during those 5 years when he was present, I got to see him a handful of times. But I learned in that handful of times, I learned a lot. But the emphasis that Prabhupada gave is that the instructions are in these books, the translations and the purports in his books. And if we meditate and try to understand what the verse is saying to us and what the commentary, how the commentary is clarifying those points. So in this particular instance, Prabhupada says one should not think in this connection that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no engagement. In his spiritual world, he is always engaged. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Atmaratmasya tasyasti prakritya na samagramaha. He is always involved in his eternal, blissful, spiritual activities. So it's not that when one ascends to the point of being pure that you have no activities to perform. Prabhupada was a perfect example of that. And even in his latter chapter of his life, he was very, very active. He traveled around the world 14 times, and all of the times that he traveled and every time in between, he was active. He was translating, he was teaching, he was giving guidance by personal example, so many things of that nature. So this is a very important principle to understand, that spiritual life does not mean that we give up being active in this world. It means that our actions are transcendentalized or spiritualized because they're in direct relationship to the Supreme Lord. And to follow the directions that are coming to us via Bhagavad Gita or the pure representative, to follow those directions, to incorporate them, to assimilate them into our life so that we're active. You can be married with children, have a job, but you can be 100% engaged in spiritual activities. How is that so? In your family, you take on the responsibility of helping your children. Give guidance to your children. Give practical example by your own actions. Like every day, my son sees me chant my japa. He knows every day Dad's going to be immersed in his 2 hours of japa. He knows, when we do kirtan, we're really focused on the chanting and the hearing. So he's surrounded by people that are my friends and associates, and he sees that in our daily activity, our daily life. So this is the kind of activity we perform action, but these actions are guided and designated to be as an offering to Krishna. That if I'm working, making money, and supporting the family, that's part of my yajna. It's part of my sacrifice to keep my family happy, to keep my family on track in terms of their own spirituality. That's my responsibility, not to give up that. Sometimes I've seen in my travels, in my history, I've seen devotees misconstrue that into thinking that now they're devotees and now they don't really have to work. And they would actually put their family into a lot of stress and anxiety because they wouldn't have a regular income. They'd be sitting around all day with their hand in their bead bag, mumbling something or another, and not seriously applying themselves. It means responsibility. We have to be responsible individuals and make sure all of that, all of our activities, whether it's work, whether it's guidance of our family, whatever it may be, it's connected. We're doing this as part of our service to the Supreme. So they're no longer karma bandhana. They're no longer actions that will bind us, but there'll be lokayam, no, there'll be jagnarta karma no nyatra. Nyatra means no reactions to these types of actions. And we try to keep on that path as much as we possibly can. And there's growth, there's progress. We'll progress in terms of our spiritual life. So to be active, yes. To understand the um, the offering mentality, yes, that has to be there. Um, what's the verse that I'm thinking of? That's in the fifth chapter. Suridam Sarvabhutan Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam Sarva. Yeah, Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam. That all of our actions, all of our sacrifices is offered to the Supreme. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. We understand that nothing is mine. We come into the world naked. We leave the world naked. Everything is the Supreme's. And we see our house is our temple. Our heart is our temple. Momo mona mondire ranisi din Krishna Murari Si Krishna Murari Momo mona mondire. It's the temple of the heart. We have to understand that that is everything is meant for as an offering to the Supreme. And therefore, action becomes our very means of advancement in spiritual life. So Krishna is saying, I don't do that kind of action. My action is all of a spiritual nature. Material activities are being carried on by different potencies, not by Krishna. It's Krishna's potencies, it's Krishna's energy, but he doesn't involve himself in it, nor does he get sullied by it. The Lord is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. This neutrality is mentioned here with the word udasina yavat. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. The examples can be given of a high court judge sitting on his bench. By his order, so many things are happening. Someone is being hanged. Someone is being put into jail. Someone is awarded a huge amount of wealth. Someone is given a pardon. All of these things are coming from the judge. So the example that Krishna or Prabhupada is giving here is Krishna, everything has everything in control, and so many things are going on by his potency. So by his order, so many things are happening. He has nothing to do with all that gain and loss. Similarly, the Lord is always neutral, although he has his hand in every sphere of activity. In the Vedanta Sutra 2, chapter 134, it is stated, Vaishsamya nar grenye not. He is not situated in the dualities of this material world. He is transcendental to their dualities, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of this material world. The living entities take their different forms in various species of life according to their past deeds, and the Lord does not interfere with them. So there's not that personal interference, but he allows, under the direction of his energies, things to go on. And he doesn't have any reaction. His actions don't have reaction. So that's verse 9. Here's text 10. Text 10 reads as follows. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sa characharam hetunanena konteya jagad viparyavartate. In this material world, this is the translation, this material world, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So under the supervision of Krishna, he supervises everything that is going on by his potencies. So Krishna says nature has inbuilt set of laws. And if you break those laws, then of course there's reaction. It's also dynamic, which means it's movement. There's lots of movement and progression and evolution. Active, we already discussed about active. Yet it's guided by a higher intelligence. So all of these things within material nature are there, but there is a higher intelligence that is there. That's why Krishna says, Maya dakshena, prakriti, this material energy is under my direction. So Krishna is very clear, and when he makes a statement that although he's separate, but still he has control, and he sees that everything is under this control. So this is done by his supreme will and the background of this material manifestation. But the management is being conducted by material nature. That's why there are so many devatas, so many demigods. Sometimes when I go to the yoga studio, there's different chantings to different devatas, Durga, Shiva, Ganesh, etc. And these devatas are empowered living entities. Shiva is special. He's a special category. His tattva, his category is different than all the other categories of the devatas. He's Shiva tattva, and that means that he's actually has many of the qualities of the Supreme Lord. But the one thing he has and does that Krishna never does is Shiva comes in contact with the material energy, the material nature. So that makes him different than Krishna or Vishnu in that he comes in contact with. So the devatas, how are these material affairs managed? Well, you have Indra, the king of heaven, and he is managing, the storms and lightning and thunder, and all those things are under his control. You have Surya. Surya is in control of the sun. You have Chandra. He's in control of the moon. Varuna, in control of all the waters, the oceans and rivers and lakes. You have Vayu, who is in charge of the winds. So all of these things, all of these elements, all of these activities in this material world are under the direction, not directly by Krishna, but by one of Krishna's empowered entities, one of the empowered devatas that are given their ability oversee the sun or the moon or the wind or the water or any one of these various categories of management that are there and under the guidance of the devatas. They are directly empowered. It's pretty much like the president of the United States, and he has his cabinet. And the cabinet and the members of the cabinet are empowered to manage a certain aspect of the government, whether it be war, the Department of War, whether it be agriculture, Department of Agriculture, Department of Transportation, all of these different departments of things that are going under the jurisdiction of the President of the United States. He has a person there in charge of agriculture, and they report. And so his energy, the President of the United States' energy, is putting them in that position and giving them the ability and the potency to fulfill their duty, their responsibility. So similarly, you have Krishna, and you have all the devatas that are under Krishna, and he empowers them with very special potencies and powers, mystical at that, so that they can control the sun or the water or the moon or any one of the other aspects of material nature. So this is what, how we explain, how we understand. He is in charge, but yet he's aloof. How is that possible? How can you be in charge of something and be aloof from it? This is how. Krishna empowers others, they do it. But ultimately, they are subservient to the Supreme Lord. So that's why when people say, "Oh, you guys, you're polytheists, you have many gods," and that's not true. That's not the Vaishnava or the Bhakti perspective. The Bhakti perspective is there's one, and that one under him has many. So, and that many, whether it be the devatas who are on the highest level, highest tier of humanity, or whether they are incarnations or avatars. The avatars also emanate from the one. And in the Brahma Samhita, it uses the example of the candle. The candle, the original candle is one, but you can light many candles from that one original candle. That one original candle always is the origin of the others. The other's potency, the other's light comes from the original candle. So all avatars, all devatas come from the original potency. Ishvara Paramakrishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Kara Karanam. So that means Ishvara Parama, the Supreme Controller, is Krishna. And that Supreme Controller is in charge of everything. And by his potencies, everything happens, everything is there. So Krishna or the Supreme is active and he's not. So when they say he's not active in the material world, but he is active through his Leela with his devotees. So that is text 10. We'll move on to text 11. And 11 reads as follows. This is also a pretty famous verse. I have to get to it here.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
You just said that Krishna doesn't participate in the material energy where Shiva does, but doesn't Krishna take birth in Vrindavan and interact with the cowherd boys and Govardhan with the pastimes in Govardhan? Isn't that interacting with the material energy?
No, it's not, because Vrindavan is not the material energy. where Krishna takes his birth in Mathura, Vrindavan, and all of his pastimes, those are part of the spiritual world. When Krishna descends, Prabhupada said this very clearly. He said when Krishna descends, he comes with his abode, his dham, his devotees, those that are assisting him in the spiritual world, and all of his paraphernalia. Everything in relationship to Krishna is not of the material world. It's totally the spiritual world. So his pastimes are the pastimes of Krishna performing in a manifest way, manifest so that they are here within this realm, but they are not of this realm. So just like a drop of water may go on a lotus flower, but it really doesn't wet the lotus flower because the lotus flower has a protective coating. So when Krishna enters into this realm, he's actually bringing everything. The whole Goloka Vrindavan is coming with him. So all of the activities that take place here in this realm are actually in the spiritual realm that has accompanied him when he has descended. That's why Vrindavan is considered such a sacred place, because that is where Krishna had everything come from Goloka Vrindavan, everything come from the spiritual world, and it remains. Of course, we can't see it when we go to Vrindavan because we're not pure enough to see it. But once the purity sits in, then more and more we begin to see. Oh, okay. So the spiritual world is there's just a fraction of the spiritual sky which is under the cloud of the material energy. It's just a small, tiny fraction, which is covering over that portion of the spiritual sky. But the spiritual sky is there. And the spiritual sky can manifest, just like if you have a big cloud and then the cloud separates in the middle. You've probably seen that because Jai Krishna, you go to the beach a lot, and you'll see all kinds of wonderful cloud formations, etc. Well, cloud may go over the sun, and then at some point there may be like a break in the cloud, and then the sunlight will stream through that. So similarly, the material energy is over a portion of the spiritual realm. It's kind of like an overlay, and the Krishna has the ability and the potency to make that spiritual, the material energy move, and then the manifestation of what is the reality, the spiritual reality, can appear in that cloud of illusion, the material energy. Does that address your question?
See, yes.
See, puppy. Okay, great. Anyone else have any question regarding what we've discussed so far? Thank you, Jai Krishna. That was a very, very thoughtful question. I appreciate it. Anyone else would like to ask something in what we were talking about? Okay. If not, I will move on to text 11. And Krishna says here, this is an often quoted verse.
Can I say something? Sorry.
Yeah, you can.
That's Rose. Yeah, that was a very, very good question that
Jai Krishna asked.
Jai Krishna asked. Because I've been asking that since the beginning of your class too, because like in Brazil, there is a big religion that's called the Candomblé. And there is the Candomblé, there is the other one. They're African religions that they're very big there, and in these religions they have what they call the orishas, which are the gods, like the god of the water, which is Iemanjá, the god of the lightning, the god of the forest, of the oceans. Iemanjá is the ocean, and the sun. So I keep wondering. I even have friends. I have a friend here who goes, and it's here too in the U.S. I have a friend. She's Brazilian. She goes to that place, and so I keep thinking, like, up to what point is it a positive thing? I was trying to tell her, like, imagine if you have, okay, so your father is a very powerful figure, but then he has all this army of people who help him through managing the world in this case. So why would you ask one of the soldiers instead of asking the father, the one who's the figure who's all the way up there? So, like, what point, is that? I mean, yeah, another thing is like they say they incorporate spirits, people who already died, and they help people through curing them. Like they say they can heal other people, blah blah. So I keep wondering, like, I've been to one of those a few, even here in the US. I have a friend who he incorporates, those spirits. I forgot the name of the religion, the segment now, but it's pretty big. There's a lot of people there. So, like, where is Krishna there?
Well, if you noticed in Egyptian religion, the ancient Egyptian religion, the Maya and the Aztecs, all of these fairly cultured Greek. Greek has Zeus, Romans had Jupiter, I believe, and the whole field of demigods. It's quite common. And that's because a lot of these different places and religions within those places were influenced by the Vedas. Uh, there was a time when Parashuram drove out um, many, many warriors. He went to battle with them. Parshuram is an incarnation or an avatar, and the leaders, the warriors, were corrupt, and he drove them out of India, and they went to different parts of the world. So these seeds of Vedic culture took root in different places, and they whether they're Africa or Brazil or Mexico or Peru or Egypt or Rome or Greece, whatever, wherever they were, they took on, but it has the same kind of structure and the same principle. It's demigod worship. And, when you worship the demigods, then there's no possibility of being liberated to the spiritual world. You can go to their planet. You can go to the sun planet or the moon planet, or where those devatas or those demigods reside. You can go there, but you can't get further than that. Only Krishna is called Mukunda, the giver of liberation, which means he can free us from these, being within this material world, within this material body, accruing karma, et cetera, et cetera. The whole situation that we're kind of stuck in right now. Krishna has the ability, and only has the ability, to give us total liberation. See, you notice in different religions, they say heaven, you go to heaven. But in the Vedic paradigm, the heavens are not the ultimate goal. The heaven is where these devatas reside. And we don't want to go there because you're still in the material realm, although the amount of enjoyment is greater there in the heavenly abode, it's called the heavenly places. But you not engaged, or you're not fully liberated from the material world, and you don't have your spiritual body, and you're not living in that spiritual body for an eternity. You still, even though in the higher planets and the planets of the devatas, there's longer lifespan, but eventually you have to give up that body too. So you're still going through the cycle. Real liberation means pure, loving relationship with the Supreme, and the opportunity to engage in that for a lifetime. That is what Bhakti Yoga is all about. Bhakti Yoga is not about establishing a relationship and getting rewards from the devatas. Bhakti Yoga is about reestablishing your natural loving relationship with the Supreme, and then at the time of death, being immersed in that loving relationship in the mind, and then going back and joining Krishna in his eternal Leela, his eternal pastimes. That's what this is all about. So when you hear where is that coming from, it's a reflection of the the actual system of the devatas or the demigods, and short of realization that there is a avatari. There may be avatars and devatas, but there's only one avatari, and that means the source. And that source, as told to us in the Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna. Does that address your question? Or do you want
Yes,
further?
it does. It addressed really well. Thank you. But yeah, Catholicism says that, right? Because you die, you either go to hell or you go to heaven. I used to think that heaven was Goloka where Krishna is. So that's not what it is, heaven?
No, in the material world, in the universe, there's 14 planetary systems, and some of them are heavenly, some of them are hellish. I think 7 are heavenly and 6 are hellish. And the one in between, which is neither fully heavenly or fully hellish, is the earth, the Martya, this world that we're in right now. And it's neither the like the heavenly planets to the degree. I mean, we do have little spots of it, like where Jai Krishna is on the beach in Dominican Republic, or where I lived in Puerto Rico or Hawaii or places like that, little spots of heavenly places. But the material world has that whole range. And in the upper planetary system, which are called the heavens, that's where the devatas, the demigods, live. And the hellish planets, that's where rakshasas and man-eaters and yakshas and other personalities like that live. And that's considered. So if you go there are different places that you can really experience, hell and the environment of hell and the suffering of hell. Okay, Rose?
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Any other question or comment? Okay, let's read this verse. This is text 11. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. So, avajananti mang mudha. Mudha means fool, foolish person. And a foolish person means that they think that if you have a body, then you're material. So Krishna is just a historical figure because he has a body, he has a form. And that is why people are attracted more towards Brahman or the impersonal realm of transcendence. Remember in previous classes how many times I've reminded you that the absolute truth has 3 divisions: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan, or the energy, the oneness of the spiritual energy, which is the source, the substance, source substance of everything, the Paramatma, the Supreme, which sits inside our heart and is our source of knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness, and then Bhagavan, which is the Supreme Person. If you think about God is omnipotent, omniscient. God has everything, then he must have form. But it's not form like our form. It's human like our form, because our form really is just a reflection of the eternal spiritual form and forms that are there. The devotees that are there with Krishna in the spiritual realm have spiritual forms also. But when somebody uses the logic that, that because Krishna came in a two-armed form and he performed pastimes here, then he cannot be God. Because, I mean, many religions say that God is just the immanence feature. Immanence meaning he's he's everything. He's within everything. He's without everything. He's in everything, like that. The feeling that there's no real one God, one personality. I know Judaism feels like that, and other religions feel that God is just everywhere. But in bhakti, it's very specific that there is God, the person, and that the ultimate in liberation is having your loving, eternal loving relationship with that supreme person revived. The whole system of bhakti yoga is to revive that natural love relationship. Everybody is attracted to love. Everyone in their own way, shape, or form pursues love. That is because we are loving, eternal loving beings. And that is why we do not get satisfaction in this world, in these bodies, because it's temporary. Any love relationship that you get into in this material world, in that body, will be temporary. If you marry your soulmate, someone, I have a friend, he was telling me his story the other day, and his wife, he lived next door, and they grew up together. And finally, when they realized, when they got to high school, they realized that they loved each other, and they went out with each other. And then they both graduated high school, and they were both going off to college, but they wanted to commit to that love by getting married. So right after high school, they got married, and then they went to college. She went to one college, he went to another. They eventually graduated, and they lived together, started a family. You can hear in his voice that he loved his wife deeply. But at the age of 42, I believe, she passed away from colon cancer. So this is what happens in the material world. We have the loving propensity, but it cannot be fully satisfied, fully satiated, because it's temporary. The form that we're in is a temporary form. So if we invest our energy into the temporary form and trying to fulfill it by getting love out of another lover, but eventually we're going to grow old, and they're going to grow old. Or in this particular case of my friend, they weren't able to grow old together. So right in the height of their relationship, they had two daughters. They were building up their careers, everything. Right in the height of that, she passed away. So this is the nature of the material world. Everything is temporary. The nature of the spiritual world is everything is not temporary. Everything is eternal. So our love relationship, which is fully satisfying, fully provides us with the contentment that we want, is only in relationship, in connection with the Supreme. It will help us in our relationships here, it helps us to see and to understand our duty, our responsibility in our relationships, to help our partner advance spiritually, to help our children advance spiritually, to help our friends advance spiritually if they are so inclined. All of these things are there in the material world, but ultimately they're done in yoga, in linked or in connection as, and what is the connection? That I am doing this, I am fulfilling my responsibility, I am fulfilling my dharma as my offering to you, my dear Lord. That's why Krishna says in the Gita, Bhoktaram Jagnatapasam, all activities, all sacrifices that you're performing, they're meant for me. Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, everything is mine, Krishna's. Suridam Sarva Bhutanam. You like having friends. You want to have a friend. You want to have a really good friend, right? A friend that you can confide in, and a friend that also loves you and trusts you so much that they can confide in you. You want that. Because Krishna says, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, I'm your best friend. I never abandon you. Your friends, for all their good intentions, what can they do at your moment of death? There's nothing they really can do. They can be there in your room as a support, but after you've taken your last breath, that's it. There's nothing more they can do. They can pray for you, pray for your soul, and pray that that soul reaches, the loving relationship with the Supreme. They can do that. But Krishna says, Suridam Sarva Bhutanam, I'm the best friend of all living entities, because even at that critical point, he's still there in the form of Super Soul, Paramatma, and he's with you. So these are important things to meditate upon, in relationship. So to think that Krishna is some ordinary person is described here in Bhagavad Gita as foolish thought, foolish way of thinking. I'll read one more verse, which is text 12, and then open it up for questions. Those who are bewildered, who are thus bewildered, are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So this is the result of acting solely for oneself. Krishna says here, they become atheistic, thinking that, only for my benefit, my gratification. I really don't need God. God has nothing to do with my life. Or even worse, demonic, against God. That's the result of seriously interacting with the material nature. That's the result. We become more and more deluded. Unless there, through some connection, some mercy, some grace, some blessing, some benediction, you are able to meet someone that can give you some insight about how to be happy, how to obtain a position of true happiness by rendering service to God, serving and surrendering to God, and experiencing the result of that love interaction. So those who are thus bewildered, when we get bewildered by our interaction with the material energy, and we see it's very bewildering, right? When we're acting, we think we have this, or we have money. To get more money is the goal of life. To get power is the goal of life. We become bewildered by those things. That's there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says that Bhogashvara Prashaktanam Toya Parita Chetasam, that one who is attached to enjoyment, material enjoyment and gain, then they do not have the ability. They do not possess the qualification to be able to understand that there is an eternal loving relationship which is blissful and full of knowledge. They don't have that ability. They don't have that qualification to see that because of them becoming enmeshed in and bewildered by the perspective that this energy, material energy, is for my enjoyment. And it's a very confusing thing because try as you may, the ultimate satisfaction is not there. Material ambitions fail ultimately. Karma, even if it's good karma, does not give permanent happiness. And speculative knowledge is incomplete. So we, in this world, that's what we're trying to do. Material ambitions, acting in a way, even acting piously. All of these things do not give the ultimate satisfaction because they're temporary. And our nature is eternal. And only until we hook up with that eternal nature through actions which are eternally, when you serve God, that service to God in the various ways, that's an eternity. And once we link with that, then we begin to feel the satisfaction within our mind. So I'll stop here. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Does anyone have any questions or takeaway points that you want to go over? Anything you want to say in terms of what you understood was being said in a particular part of the class? Anyone?
I don't want to be interfering too much because, but this is intriguing me. I have to ask you that. So you said that, okay, Krishna doesn't interact in this world, right? But at the same time, he's my best friend. So how can that be?
Through his expansion of Paramatma, super soul within your heart. That is an expansion. That is not Krishna. Krishna is complete with 64 qualities. Paramatma does not have all 64 qualities, which is the complete Krishna, the complete person. So he interacts with you every day because he's in your heart, in the core of your heart. Sarvasya chaham ridi sanivishto matak smritya gyanam aponam cha. That within the hearts of all living entities, I dwell there as the supersoul or the Paramatma. And from me comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So he's interacting with you on a daily basis. It's just that when we are not sufficiently purified, when our hearts are not sufficiently cleansed, we don't have the ability to understand that, to see that, to experience that. And therefore, we think, it's our brains that are producing our knowledge or our remembrance. But it's actually those three things Krishna says they're coming from the super soul. And the super soul is a representative or a expansion of Krishna himself. In
It's
that
part
way.
Chit Ananda, right?
Say that again. You broke up.
Sat Chit Ananda is part of that what you're saying. We are Sat Chit Ananda.
Correct.
Yeah. So
We
okay,
are
so go ahead.
eternity, knowledge, and bliss. That's what the soul is made of. And that's where the drop of ocean water in the ocean comes into play. That we have Satchit Ananda. Krishna has Satchit Ananda. Satchit Ananda. These are the constitutional components of our very being, our very essence. The difference is we are finite and Krishna is infinite. So in that way, the drop is the ocean, but not. It may have the qualities, the ingredients of the ocean, but only in very minute measures. And that is us in comparison to the Supreme Lord.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Anyone else would like to say anything? Be greatly appreciated if you have anything or anything you'd like to share with us, any kind of takeaway point that you have.
Hi,
Takeaway point,
Krishna.
yeah,
Hi, Krishna. No, when you were talking about the ancient cultures, yeah, they have like names for the like for Mother Earth. They call it Pachamama in South America, and they have. I was giving a lesson actually about these pre-Spanish ruins and near the place where I was born, and they have the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the Moon. So
you
it
were
was
born where? In Peru or Colombia?
Ecuador.
Oh, Ecuador.
But that culture was from Argentina all the way to Colombia. So the Incas were there, and
Right.
them, but so interesting that connection. That
Yeah, because you see, it's not how anyone could think it's coincidence that, all of these kind of cosmological structures are so similar, especially if you study them in depth. How can they be so similar? It's because, they have a Vedic influence, knowledge, Veda means knowledge. So anywhere where there's knowledge, it has had, it may have separated and taken on its own little cultural bent. But you see, the Greeks, the Romans, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Mayans, I mean, the Egyptians, in various parts of Africa, all over in old cultures, old civilizations, they had this kind of structure. God of the sun, God of the moon, God of the water, God of the wind. Yeah, it's in the Vedas. It's all in the Vedas.
and also the Native Americans, right? They have like they also call it the high spirit or something like that. Like God.
Right.
I don't
Yeah,
think they have a name.
I know in my wife's country, Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan's all Muslim now, but prior to that, there was an old religion. It was called Big Sky, and the total, the sky. It's funny because Brahman means vastness, and the sky is vast. It's everywhere. The sky is everywhere. So that's the perspective, from coming from that Central Asian culture. And when you see and you break down the culture, and you even break down the Judeo-Christian religions, you see there's so much similarity, to the Bhakti tradition, to meditation and prayer, and all of these things that are very much a part of the Bhakti tradition. Because Bhakti is Sanatan. Bhakti is the position of the heart, the constitutional makeup of the heart. Bhakti. Bhakti means love and devotion for the Supreme. And what religion does not promote love and devotion to the Supreme? They all do. So, Bhakti, you look at the lives of great Christian mystics, St. Francis of Assisi, St. Catherine, St. Teresa. They lived a life of bhakti. They were chanting on their rosary beads. They were reading their scripture every day, the Bible. All they were going to their ritual, the mass. Bhakti has those 5 angas. 5 angas are chanting, sadhu sangha, study of Shastra and self-study, going to holy places, and your rituals by which you remember and link up with the Supreme. And they all have that. They all have their rituals. They all have their chanting or of prayers, meditation. These are universal principles. So not to exclude others as being invalid because they're not accepting the Savior or not being born in the right womb, or it is a little bit foolish. It may be the path for them, then that's okay, because Prabhupada said, real religion means you're able to cultivate your love for God and experience love for God. So if you're following a particular path and that is occurring, you're actually developing a loving sentiment for God. Then keep walking on your path. Anything else?
Yes.
Jai Krishna, go ahead.
I don't know if it's something you want to discuss tonight because it might be a long reply. If not, maybe we can shelve it for another time. I was just, I'm always reading things, and like you were mentioning today, the different cultures, the Mayan, the Aztec, the Egyptians, and all that. And I was shortly comparing, the pyramids, we see in Egypt and really all over the world. And then I was looking at pictures of vimanas. Now there's different forms of vimanas, but there's one very astute form in the shape of a pyramid.
Yeah.
And I've seen that several times. So I don't know if we want to discuss it tonight because it's just probably a long discussion. But I just noticed the comparison between the Vimana and the pyramids, really close to that.
Can you tell, or for those out there may not know what a Vimana is, can you tell them?
Well, I would prefer you tell them, but they're spaceships by the demigods and different forms that come to the Earth, and then they're the celestial spacecrafts. And Vimanas take several different forms.
Right.
But this one in particular that I see is in the shape of a pyramid. So maybe if you want to elaborate on that, it's welcome. But if not, we can shelve it.
No, but that was good. I mean, raising that, it is a long discussion, and but I think at least gave it some clarity, in that regard. I mean, the pyramid is supposed to be a very potent shape, and it's to siphon the energy, through the top of it. So it doesn't surprise me that a vimana would have that shape because the devatas have knowledge of how to utilize energies around us that we can't even imagine. We may call it mystic cities or mystic potencies, but they actually know how many of the Vimanas are made of subtle energy, not gross energy. Of course, they're the Rakshasas that have their flying machines too, and they use gross elements, but the demigods use subtle elements, and they're like you said, they're varying in shapes and sizes and what they can do. Yeah, so that is a long discussion. It is 8:14. So anyone else would like to share? We'll take one more question or um, observation in that regard. Anyone? If not, I thank you all for your attendance, your association, for your attentive listening, and I hope you all have a joyful week. Happy, healthy, holy week. a reminder that we are having another Bhakti Love Feast on June 7th. So it's coming up. It's not this weekend. This weekend on Saturday, I believe it's at Sartori Hall in Coconut. Uh, um,
Coral
County.
Springs,
Coral Springs.
Saturday.
I always say Coconut Springs, Coral Springs. Thank you, Rose. Yeah, so in Coral Springs at the Sartori Hall, there'll be a program. And I didn't look where the Thursday kirtan is at. Anyone here that
Yeah,
tends to,
home.
where? Oh, at the Womb
Yeah,
in Lake Worth. Okay, thank you.
too far.
You'll be coming to the New York Rath Yatra, Lakshmi Prabhu?
Yes, Haribo.
No, I'll see you there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll see you there. My wife, my son, and I will
Nice.
come. We'll be in the area for about a week. I'll
Beautiful.
be doing a little lecturing at different places, but we'll definitely be there. Get to see some family, my sister, my older
Nice.
sister, and my nephew, and my nephew's son is my son's age. So
Oh, wow. Nice.
those guys are soccer buddies. So they'll get to hang out. They'll get to hang out a little bit. Yeah. So I'll be around in and around the New York, New Jersey area. My sister lives in New Jersey, in Union County, Kenilworth, New Jersey.
Okay.
So I'll be there. I'll stay there for a couple of days, and then we'll be in New York City probably Saturday and Sunday. So yeah, we'll see you. Wonderful.
Yeah, see you there soon.
You'll be bringing your mridanga, right?
I don't know. It's just like a long, I'll just go hang out in the park. Yeah, I should bring the Mindanga. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Some kind
Yeah,
of drum.
we'll see you and your mridanga then.
There's so many Mindanga players now. All these kids now. Like,
I know. Yeah.
Oh, so the event in New York again? What's the date? What are the dates?
The date is June 13th is the actual day of the parade, the Rath Yatra parade, June 13th. And June 14th, they have a festival at the Brooklyn Temple, which is mostly kirtan and prasadam and nice, nice time.
Um,
So if you are able to come, please come. It's an experience of a lifetime.
I'll be in
Actually.
Brazil. I can't go.
Oh, okay. Maybe next year.
Maybe next year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Hey, boy.
Good to see you. Haribo. Have a great week.
You too, bro. Hare Krishna.
Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Lakshmi.
You're welcome. Hare Krishna.